From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping meet for 4 hours of discussion on Wednesday intended to lower the temperature on U.S.-China relations. What did they accomplish, and what does it mean for what has been an increasingly tense relationship going forward? Plus, the House Ethics Committee finds that George Santos, the Long Island Republican, broke the law and House rules. Santos announced he won't run for re-election after the report was issued, but will he be expelled from the House before then? Welcome. I'm Paul Gigot, editorial page editor of the Wall Street Journal, here with my raucous and rebellious colleagues, Kim Strassel and Joe Sternberg. Just kidding.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
But welcome to you both. So a warming trend in U.S.-China relations, is that what we have here? That was the hope on both sides as Biden and Xi met on the sidelines of the annual APEC, a meeting of Asian country leaders in San Francisco this week. The atmospherics were good for a change, but the question is, how much was really accomplished other than, frankly, just meeting and talking, which has its own virtues sometimes. Both countries, and certainly the United States, wants to avoid what could be a catastrophic war. And both sides had reasons to want to calm tensions. Xi Jinping wants to help his economy, needs foreign investment, which has been declining, and deal with a slow economy because of a real estate bubble bursting and high youth unemployment. President Biden, meanwhile, doesn't want a third crisis in the world with wars in Ukraine and Israel already underway. And particularly, he wants to calm things down with China, at least through the 2024 election. Let's start by listening to Joe Biden announce a new deal, what he calls a deal on fentanyl production in China.
In 2019, you may remember, China took action to greatly reduce the amount of fentanyl shipped directly from China to the United States. But in the years since that time, the challenge has evolved from finished fentanyl to fentanyl chemical ingredients and pill presses, which are being shipped without control. And by the way, some of these pills are being inserted in other drugs like cocaine. A lot of people are dying. More people in the United States between the ages of 18 and 49 die from fentanyl than from guns, car accidents, or any other cause, period. So today, with this new understanding, we're taking action to significantly reduce the flow of precursor chemicals and pill presses from China to the Western Hemisphere.
Joe, fentanyl is indeed a scourge, but this reminds me a little bit of what Trump and Xi announced in 2019, as Biden mentioned. Nothing much happened then. Fentanyl as a deadly import has continued and has even gotten worse. Will this one do any better?
I'm skeptical. I think that the key thing to understand here is that although Xi Jinping and the Communist Party have formed an authoritarian government in China, they don't have total control over the economy. And I think that the fentanyl situation is exposing one of the big problems that the U.S. has with dealing with the Chinese economy in general, which is that you have a lot of widely dispersed power, regulatory power in the economy, and then you also have a lot of small companies in the Chinese private sector that just do whatever they feel like doing. And I think that that has often been the pattern with fentanyl, where, what you're actually finding is that China has a large legitimate pharmaceutical and chemicals industry that will produce fentanyl or the chemical precursors of fentanyl on the side. So first off, you have this problem of figuring out where the legitimate activity ends and the illicit activity of these companies begins. You often have complicated relationships between this kind of Chinese company and local government or party officials, so that the central government in Beijing might not have clear insight into what's happening. And, I think that this kind of dynamic is something that is repeated across industries in China. It's not just chemicals and pharma, and it actually makes it very difficult for Xi Jinping to deliver on the promises that he makes at these summits to try to clamp down on this trade. And that's even if he wanted to deliver, and it isn't always entirely clear that he does.
Yeah, the other issue, of course, is the problem with fentanyl is demand for drugs in the United States, which until that is reduced, It'll be hard to reduce the number of deaths. Kim, the other success or deal coming out of this is the resumption of military-to-military communications between People's Liberation Army and the U.S. military. Let's listen to Joe Biden dilate on that.
We're reassuming military-to-military contacts, direct contacts. As a lot of you press know who follow this, that's been cut off, and it's been very worrisome. That's how accidents happen, misunderstandings. So we're back to direct, open, clear, direct communications on a direct basis. Vital miscalculations on either side can cause real trouble with a country like China or any other major country, and so I think we're made real progress there as well.
Kim, the Biden administration has been wanting to get these relatively basic communications restored. China's been resisting for months and now has finally conceded. But this is the kind of thing that happens. It's really deconfliction information as much as anything else we have with Russia and other places so that there aren't any accidents. So good move, I guess, but hardly earth-shattering.
Well, yeah, good move, except for that the notion that this is what we were trying to get out of this meeting is very, very concerning because, as you said, this is baseline. These are the sort of things that even in the height of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, other times of great tension across the globe, we have generally maintained these kinds of military-to-military contacts, even with adversaries, to ensure, as the president said, that there aren't mistakes that are made, that nobody accidentally pushes a button that didn't mean to. And the fact that we had to essentially beseech and work so hard simply to reestablish those connections is very alarming. And so, yes, while it's good news, it's great to hear the fact that it required the entire Chinese premier coming to the United States and that what we essentially got out of this meeting is something that should have been happening anyway, and then some promises on fentanyl and a lot of nice atmospherics. We didn't really get to a lot of the really tough issues that remain outstanding that have to do with Chinese ongoing hostilities against Taiwan and the Philippines, its ongoing aid, diplomatic aid and economic help to Russia and to Iran. Those are the things that you'd like to be seeing handled at a meeting like this. So I think we need to take the victories, as it were, a little bit for the very low bar that they were.
All right. The related here, I mean, nothing on artificial intelligence, transparency, or cooperation that was mooted, but no announcement on climate change policy. Nothing at all on security. I mean, apparently there was a sharp and how they like to say candid exchange over Taiwan, with Xi asserting that Taiwan will be absorbed into the mainland again. It's inevitable to stop arming Taiwan. Nothing at all that we've heard about any movement on Hong Kong. So nothing really, including any promises on cyber theft or anything else. So pretty basic meeting, Joe, from all accounts. And we don't know whether this will amount to much in the end. I guess it's good that they're talking, but I don't think this fundamentally changes the relationship.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I think the key thing is what is the spirit in which you are going into a meeting like this? And I think that one of the disconnects that you can detect even at this late date in Washington is, I mean, all of the issues you were just describing, Paul, are the sorts of things that friends or cooperative countries might discuss with each other. I mean, this is the kind of discussion on issues of common concern that the U.S. might have with our partners in Europe, for example. I think that what is slowly starting to dawn, although apparently very slowly to judge from some of the noise surrounding this meeting, is that that is not the kind of relationship that we have with China at this point. It is much more of a rivalry. And so I think that that kind of negotiation needs to focus much more narrowly on items that are achievable and that are important to the U.S. from a perspective of deterrence. And that's why I think that it's the kind of troubling or perplexing that they seem to have spent so much time talking about issues like AI, or I'm sure climate also came up at various points, when what we really needed to have been thinking about going into the summit was what are things that President Biden can do or say during the meeting that will contribute to deterring an invasion of Taiwan, for example, or that will contribute to making Xi think twice about some of the interference China is doing with freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. And I don't think that there was quite that approach heading into the summit, which explains why the outcome from it seems so disappointing now.
Let's listen to a clip from President Biden at a presser after the event, asked by a reporter about whether Xi Jinping was a dictator. Let's hear what he had to say.
After today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is the guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
Well, that didn't go down well, Kim, with the Chinese spokesman who denounced the statement. And the New York Post is reporting that Secretary of State Antony Blinken seemed to visibly wince when Joe Biden said that. But he told the truth. She is a dictator. So kudos to the president for that. But this is not a relationship that is going to be, it's going to be a rivalry adversarial for, I think, a very long time, as long as the Chinese Communist Party maintains its ambitions.